Any good stories from the road?
Pipe up.
I wish we'd gotten seen a little bit more out of our punter.
I'm starting to puke.
It makes my stomach hurt.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to die.
I'm starting to throw up in my mouth a little bit.
He's on the probiotics.
Is Georgia playing the 1985 Bears this weekend or what?
A lot of Todd talk.
Rat poison proof.
They're mongeese.
We will not be hunted at the University of Georgia. I can promise you that. The hunting that we do will be done from us going the other direction.
Howdy, y'all. It's time for the Georgia Show, and it's Auburn week. And, guys, I don't know about y'all. I'm excited for this game. I know it's not in November like it normally is, but I've had all the old games playing in the background today while I did my work. It's been hot on our message boards, been hot on social media with people reminiscing about the games and the Deep South's oldest rivalry. So let's get fired up. Jake Rowe, Palmer Toms, how you doing, guys?
I'm good, man. I think I've seen this game more than in person than I've seen any other game that any other team Georgia's ever played. I think I've probably seen more Auburn games in person than any other.
Yeah. Palmer, have you been to many of them, either working and or just as a normal fan in the stands?
This will be number 4 for me. The first one back my freshman year, 2018, was a night game. Don't remember much of that one. But 2019, 2021, the 2 games at Auburn, great environments there. Love going and visiting. One of my best friends played football at Auburn, so always fun to see Georgia, the team I cover, and the Auburn, the team he played for, cross paths. The team that I've seen Georgia play the most would be Vanderbilt, being from Nashville.
That makes sense. Yeah, I've seen quite a few myself, and most of them have been pretty good for Georgia. It's been quite a fortunate, favorable little run right now. I don't know that Georgia is dominating any annual rival the way that it is Auburn, and that almost makes me wonder, the law of averages. Is Georgia going to get caught? Georgia going to get bit in this game, especially coming off of that Missouri performance? The Dogs don't tighten things up. You got to wonder. But you guys are around the Butts-Mehre building. You're talking to Kirby. You're talking to the players. What's the vibe? What's the feeling right now? How are they doing on the injury front? All that good stuff.
They are banged up injury-wise, especially on defense. Smile Munden, I would say you'd put in the questionable category. Not sure what he was able to do today, but Kirby said he struggled through the first 2 days of practice this week. Jalen Carter's out. Chaz Chambliss probably looks a little bit questionable, maybe doubtful. I know he's a kind of a reserve guy. But Smile Munden and Jalen Carter are a couple big ones there. And I think that, it's going to take some doing to make up for those guys. And, the matchup, I'll get into that later. But Georgia, there's a good chance Georgia's going to be without at least 2 guys that it plays a lot on defense. And, that could be a problem. Next man up.
Yeah, that depth is starting to be an issue. And I don't know if it's a serious issue, but it's an issue in the fact that we're talking about it. We're talking about who's backing up Jalen Carter, who's backing up Smile Munden. You wrote about it today, Jake, and that's the normal wear and tear of an SEC season, but Georgia's only through 5 games. I mean, you look at A.D. Mitchell being out, look at Arian Smith. How much of these things are starting to contribute to some of these performances that we've seen with Georgia not playing its best ball?
I don't want to say a ton of it because those, the guys that had the ball in their hands and put it on the ground probably have more to do with it than anybody else. Those turnovers, I still kind of harping on that. And what's crazy about it is I think either going into the Samford game or going into the South Carolina game, it's probably the South Carolina game, I talked about how Georgia was, the championship DNA of the team was that Georgia just wasn't giving the other team anything. And then you turn around and bam, they've turned it over 5 times in 2 weeks and haven't really gotten anything back, out of them. So, Georgia just got to do a better job. They got to flip the script on that. I don't think the injuries are killing them. I do think it makes them a little bit more vulnerable in some specific areas, especially at inside linebacker when you consider Tresman Marshall is also banged up. But I don't think that it's contributing to what we've seen as far as the struggles the last couple weeks. I think that's got to do more with sloppy play and turnovers.
I do think that some of it has to do with missing a passing threat like AD Mitchell, though, because I think that what we saw from Georgia's offense, especially against Oregon, they were so dynamic in getting the ball out, getting the ball downfield, making plays that that very few guys on this team are capable of doing. And when you take away one of those guys, it just puts more pressure on a guy like Ladd McConkey, who has obviously, cracked a little bit under pressure, coughing the ball up, struggling with some drops. Maybe he's not cut to be Georgia's number one wide receiver. And that's fine because he doesn't have to be Georgia's number one wide receiver when they're completely healthy. AD Mitchell takes that title. They work to get the ball in the hands of Brock Bowers and Darnell Washington more. But I do think that I don't think you can put it entirely on the injuries, but I certainly think that the injuries have had some sort of role in especially the red zone woes of this offense.
Well, when you talk about the issues up front, I think one thing that is interesting to take a look at here is on the defensive line. Georgia doesn't really have the injury excuse. On the offensive line, Missouri just punched Georgia in the mouth. That's been well established. But with Jalen Carter being out, you're starting to talk about guys that aren't necessarily young. They're just inexperienced. Zion Logue is stepping up. He's getting a lot of meaningful reps right now, but it's not in the same position when you look at the D-line as it was with Jordan Davis and Devontae Wyatt. And those things just come with time. Kirby said it. Look, these players have not gone through their 2019 South Carolina game. They haven't gone through their 2020 Alabama game or their 2020 Florida game yet. So some of these lessons are hard, and some of them are necessary for Georgia to go where it wants to go. But I think one person who's taken note of it is Auburn center Brandon Council. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but he spoke to Auburn's media today, and he says that he believes that they can demolish them. That's the actual word. He said we could demolish them up front. So, guys, here's number 71.
Demolition Man.
Brandon Council ready to demolish the Dogs. I'm with you, Jake. Seems a little foolish.
Yeah, I kind of want to do that Michael Scott meme where he's like, I wish you had a poster of Wesley Snipes and Demolition Man circa like 1994 or whatever.
Dig that up.
Came out. Demolish, huh? I mean, I don't know, man. I don't want to hate the confidence. I just don't know if that's really a bear you want to poke, because the Jalen Carter injury doesn't really rile me up like the Smile Munden one does, because we've seen what Georgia does when Jalen Carter's banged up. Like, right? I mean, he played a handful of snaps, just a few snaps against Samford, a few snaps against South Carolina, very little against almost none, one offensive snap against Kent State. And then, he only played like 6 against Missouri. And, Georgia did give up some big plays in that Missouri game, but they still gave up 5.5 yards of play and under 300 yards of total offense. It's not like Missouri was moving the ball up and down the field. Georgia gave them some really short fields early in the game they were able to capitalize on. But, that's neither here nor there. I just think that, Nazir Stackhouse, Zion Logue, Warren Brinson, Bill Norton, Bear Alexander, Christian Miller, you kind of go down the line. I think Georgia's got some really good players up front on defense, and I just don't know if you wanted to give them that extra. What do you accomplish by saying that out loud? Nothing. Not one thing. In fact, you may get your back porch painted red.
Yeah,
if you by saying it.
Poking the bear, poking the dog, whatever it is, man. That's like the last
Bear
thing.
Alexander. That's what I was going for.
I'm picking up what you're putting down. But with this team right now, man, they've kind of lacked a little bit of a spark. And it's almost like at the perfect moment, this guy comes along and potentially gives them that spark. And I don't expect him to know what is going on with Georgia right now, but it almost seems like just the worst possible timing if Georgia uses it to motivate them in the way that we've seen Georgia use this stuff to motivate them before, specifically in the Auburn game. Think about the Gus Malzahn dog crap comment. I mean, one of those Auburn games that I had on in the background today was that SEC championship game. And we're on the field immediately after that game. I ask Isaac Nada, how do you feel about this win? He goes, we whipped the dog crap out of them, didn't we? Like, those kinds of things, I don't think people fully appreciate. It seems like a cliche with the bulletin board material, but it does reach these players' ears.
Well, and we're not the only ones noticing it, because over at Auburn, on our Auburn Live on 3 site, Justin Hokanson tweeted out, "Oh no, Brandon Council, not like this. For real though. Why? Why?"
That's good.
Man.
So it's getting noticed, not just by Georgia media, not just by Auburn media. I would imagine the players have taken notice of that too. To say that he feels like they can demolish them. Hey, he did preface it, if we keep them out of their third down packages. So there's a preface, there's a precursor to the demolition.
There you go. So just move the ball on first and second down, and then you'll be in good shape. But seriously, guys, looking back at this rivalry and looking at where it is right now with Brian Harsin seemingly on the way out, how much of a factor is that for Auburn coming in between the hedges and this perfect storm, trash talk, bulletin board material aside? Does Georgia really have a great opportunity right now to get back on track with this Auburn team being in the state that it is?
Georgia's always got a great chance to get on track against Auburn inside Sanford Stadium. I mean, that's just 2005. Last chance they won in Athens. I think you had close games in 2009 and 2014. And the rest of them have been, for the most part, just beatings. And, Georgia's puts a couple of 2 or 3 epic beatings on Auburn inside Sanford Stadium. It's toyed with them a few times, kind of farted around a little bit, and maybe didn't beat them by as much as they should have a couple of times. But for the most part, Auburn has gotten worked in the state of Georgia against Georgia. I mean, you count that SEC championship game. There was a stat, and I can't remember when it was. I can't remember what game it was, where Auburn hadn't scored a touchdown in the second, third, or fourth quarter against Georgia in Sanford Stadium.
Yeah, I'm going to try to look that
like
up. I
a
remember
10-year
that too,
stretch or something. Like in 5 games inside Sanford Stadium. It was something wild though. I mean, it was almost like there was a little run there when Gus Malzahn was there, where they would come down, they would score on their opening drive, and that was it. That was, done. I know in that 2014 game when Auburn was actually playing some pretty good football, maybe ranked top 10 in the country, Georgia had lost 4 out of 5 games. They had lost to Ole Miss and Tennessee on the Hail Mary, and Vanderbilt and Florida and
2016.
Yeah. Oh, it was 2016. Yeah. Sorry, 2016. Right. When Georgia beat them that year, Auburn didn't have a first down in the second half. Like not one first down. Maurice Smith,
only touchdown.
Pick six. Georgia's only offensive touchdown that day. But Georgia's just kind of really beat up on them in Athens. I mean, it's hard to anticipate them flipping the script with everything they've got going on right now. They're not a great football team. They were very lucky to beat Missouri. They got what happened last week had to take something out of them. Brian Harsin's situation hanging in the air, a state of flux at quarterback, and if I'm not mistaken, they lost an edge rusher for the season earlier this week. In the
Leo too.
Yeah, lost him for the season as well. So, and then you got Brandon Council spouting off. So I don't see it, but It's not impossible.
Well,
I'll get to that later.
These calls are kind of starting to sound the same though when we talk about these teams that are coming in because we've said a lot of the same things.
How many points was it that we were given the over-under on for the next 3-4 games? And
it was like 40.
Yeah, and they let up 22 last week. And
22 in back-to-back weeks.
Yeah, so
I don't know if that's ever happened in the history of football, by the way.
Yeah,
giving up 22 points.
Right.
Jake, so I did the research on it. Georgia has not given up a second-half touchdown to Auburn at Sanford Stadium since Cam Newton was their quarterback in 2010.
Well, they
Cam Newton
weren't
never
at Sanford
played
Stadium then either. So
yeah, Cam Newton never played between the hedges. Right?
Oh yeah. I forgot about that. I forgot about the change there.
Yeah, that was the flip.
So 11 they played in Athens.
No, that was in Auburn too.
No, all right. It
went from 2009 to 2012.
It was
okay. All right, so then I'm beginning my research again. Nine
in 12 as well.
It was 12 and 13.
They did play him in 11 at home.
11. Aaron Murray was just throwing absolute seeds at everybody. Michael Bennett had a touchdown.
All right,
Malcolm
11.
Mitchell,
Sorry, Rambo.
Bruce Figgins had a touchdown.
11. They did not.
I had a touchdown.
11. They did not give up a second half touchdown. So you got to go back to 2009, where
I think
Georgia, they did.
That was the game where Bakari Rambo knocked himself out.
The whole stadium was chanting Rambo's name, and he was out with a concussion, I believe, on the field.
Gave up a fourth quarter touchdown there, but still won 31-24. You know what, Wes? You brought up the Auburn situation, Brian Harsin. To me, I think that could be, and I know Kirby says that they don't look at some of that outside. They focus on themselves. They don't look at that outside noise. To me, if I was Georgia and I was trying to get back on track, I smell blood in the water here, and it's an opportunity in a big rivalry game, 127th meeting between these two teams, to get Auburn's coach fired with a beat down. To me, that would be motivating.
Palmer's so savage.
Palmer's like, get this guy back out into the MAC, baby.
We
Send him out of the
people's
SEC.
lives.
I know what you mean, Palmer, and I'm gonna.
But yeah, to me, if I was a Georgia
kids in a new private school,
right?
Hey,
make his wife find a new hairstylist.
With that buyout that I'm sure he would receive, I'm feeling certain they could go to whatever private school they want to.
Well, look, schools are firing guys left and right these days. You got to keep your head on a swivel, man. I spoke with Tom Hart from the SEC Network. He called the Georgia-Missouri game this past weekend, went to Mizzou, and I asked him what he thought about Auburn coming into Sanford Stadium. Here is Tom Hart's perspective.
I haven't seen him in person. My biggest curiosity with them, and once again, since I haven't, I can't comment with authority on this, but my biggest question is, can they do the same thing Missouri did on the defensive line? Now, offensively, they've been through a couple of different quarterbacks. Tank Bigsby is still Tank Bigsby, and they can run the ball fairly well, but they blew a 17-point lead to LSU. They just don't have they don't seem to be a whole lot of positive feelings around that program right now, with a head coach walking the green mile, and who knows what's next. But the recruiting certainly hasn't been to what Georgia has done over the years.
We'll get to the recruiting aspect later on in the show. Jake Roos broke down the angles of Georgia's visitors this weekend and some big names coming between the hedges. But Tom touched on everything that we have already touched on, except for Auburn's defensive front trying to expose Georgia's O-line again, guys. And that's the big question. We talked about it Sunday night. Have we gotten any kind of answers, any kind of indication about what Georgia's doing to shore that up offensively? I know they're not going to show their hand and reveal all their schemes to us, but what's the energy, what's the mindset about not getting owned up front on the offensive line again?
Well, there hasn't been a whole lot of concern expressed, but I will say this. I wrote a story on Monday about how I felt like the offensive line was going to have a tough week because Kirby made the comment that, the whole physicality thing on Monday, he's like, hey, that's on us as coaches. That's what our job. We've got to get them ready to play. You hear a guy say something like that, and, the guy that's kind of, reserved in terms of he's just not a super verbose guy like Kirby Smart is, and he says something like that, you're betting that they're probably going to work him pretty hard. There hasn't been a ton of like, well, we got to do this better, we got to do that better, we're struggling with this, we're struggling with that. It's just been being more physical and being more firm at the point of attack. And I mean, I'm sure they'll work on that. I just don't think that Auburn is as disruptive, on a down in, down out basis as
and they're
as
on the road and they don't have the home crowd to energize them and juice
yeah,
them up.
or that, or the mess with the snap count, anything like that.
Yeah, and I wrote a little bit about it as well, and Kirby gave us a quote. I think it was Monday. Pretty certain that it was Monday, but that the blame doesn't fall entirely on the offensive line here. That they've got to do better all around offensively. It does feel like the offensive line has been a little bit of a scapegoat. That they've been looked at as the problem, and I fall into that category as well. I think back on Saturday night show, Sunday night show, I've talked a lot about the offensive line needing to get things fixed up there. Kirby was asked if they're going to cut down the rotation. Well, they kind of already have. The two rotational players per se, Amarius Mims and Devin Willock, only played, I think it was 6 snaps. Outside of that, it was the starting 5 played all of them. So you saw a moment there where Tate Ratledge and Warren McClendon were out, but those other 3 played all 81 snaps. And so to me, I'm certainly interested to see if they do decide to change things up a little bit, maybe change up the approach. But I think it goes back to just physicality. Gotta bring it. Kirby said it Saturday night in a very blunt way. Georgia got their butts whipped, and that can't happen again.
Well, part of what we also talked about was that vicious cycle of Stetson couldn't find guys that could separate on offense when he's trying to let passing plays develop. When they hurried up and really needed to put the hammer down, they could drive. They drove on Mizzou. But part of the silver lining, the bright spots of Georgia offensively was Don Blaylock. And I think of all the guys that we're wondering to see who's going to step up for all these Georgia injured players, well, one of them is Don Blaylock, a guy who knows a lot about injuries himself, and it's probably not a name that anybody really expected to be a major role player coming into the season, but y'all spoke to him this week too, and he's really developing into a legitimate target for Stetson, who's very dependable too when Stetson needs to find a guy who knows what he's doing down the field.
Yeah, kid knows a little bit about lighting Auburn up too. Big catch against them in the 2019 game, I believe it was.
Yep.
At
Hartley
Auburn,
says feed them more targets. That's right, Glenn.
52 yard touchdown pass, from Jake Fromm, I believe it was. And I mean, the thing about Blaylock is there's not one thing on the page other than maybe his hands that really jumps out at you. But he always seems to separate. He always seems to power through and finish plays with the extra yardage or break a tackle. He's a really good football player. If you were able to you talk about measurables. If you were able to measure that little football piece of his brain or his heart or whatever, it's large. And I think that the thing that encouraged me about Dominic Blaylock this week is he just openly said, I feel like I'm back doing a lot of the same things that I was as a freshman, and I'm doing them at the same level. Georgia needs that. Georgia needs that physical presence to go along with the guy that Dominic Blaylock has developed into mentally. You pair those two together. I'm not sitting here saying he's going to be a dominant force, but I think he can be an impact player.
A dominant force. Nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Palmer. Easy.
No,
Tiger.
but hey, he did talk about that being back to freshman Dom, and like you said, Jake, that's certainly something that Georgia would love to have. Given the fact that he was such a major contributor on that team at a time where they are, looking for receivers to step up. Even with a guy like A.D. Mitchell in there, it's still a young receiver group. Dom is somebody that is a veteran, maybe hasn't played a ton of games because he's missed so much time, but he's been around for 4 years. He's spent so much time off the field. And he said, that during that time that he was recovering, he was developing, off the field as well, in terms of his understanding, his knowledge of this playbook. Certainly impressed with Dom last week, impressed with what he had to say this week as well. And, Georgia needs him because he's been a reliable pass catcher in the past, and they are looking for reliable pass catchers in the present.
Palmer's pun about domination reminded me of some people that know how to turn a phrase and put it on a t-shirt, and that's Breaking Tea. Check out breakingtea.com for the lineup of Georgia t-shirts. You need a new one. We have a link to the fine folks at Breaking Tea's website in this show's description, whether you are listening on a podcast or watching on YouTube. Check out Breaking Tea, their wide collection of Mailman, Brock Bowers, Chris Smith, Darnell Washington. They got it all. Go check out the Breaking Tea lineup at the link in this show. Guys, let's chop some wood.
Wes, I know that they've got a Brock Bowers one. I've got something stored away.
What do you have?
I'm saving it for a tweet. I'm saving it for one of those tight ends to make a big play. I'll let you know.
All right, man. You're letting me down. I think you could give the people a sneak peek tonight.
But we might get it on a Breaking Tea t-shirt. Let's just say it's a little bit of Brock Bowers Heisman hype.
Have you sent this over to Sam Franco?
I have not.
We'll do it. He'll probably put it on a t-shirt. He might give you some NIL money. Let's chop some wood, fellas.
Hey, I just sent it in the chat for you two to get a little bit.
You're being real sneaky. You're being real sneaky right now.
I had already seen it. You had already sent it to me, so yeah, I'd already seen it. I like it. It's good.
All right, Jake's on board. All right. Okay, I like it too, but let's see what happens. I understand why you're not sharing it at the moment. You don't want to jinx anything, right?
Hey, I'm looking for.
It has to do with a very high-profile award in college football. I'm ready to chop some wood, guys. I got my axe. I don't know about y'all, but I'm gonna lead us off tonight. I think Georgia needs to look at this game, and I'm not as savage as Palmer is about this, but I think Georgia needs to look at this game in a way that I know they're not looking at it because they take it one game at a time, nameless, faceless opponent, all that stuff. But the important thing for this game to me is that Georgia needs to go into this game and dominate. And they really need to do the dirty deed of treating this team the way that they deserve to be treated. Auburn's not very good. Georgia's shown us that they are good when they play their best football. And it's a critical time of the season for the Dogs to really knock this one out of the park, get back into their actual ways of making people quit, being the team that is hunted, all the stuff that Kirby says. It's now, and it may also be never if they don't do it right now, because you got this game, you got Vandy next week, you got the bye week before Florida, and then it is a brutal stretch. You don't want to go into the bye week wondering about, can we score in the red zone? Can we give Stetson enough time to let plays develop? Can we continue to put pressure on the quarterback? Can we keep getting turnovers? That's what Georgia needs, and this is the game to go out there and do it.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I know, you're sitting here rooting for it. Palmer's sitting here talking about it. you guys want Georgia to beat Auburn so bad that, it wrecks the Harsin family dynamic. I get it. You guys are just like, really wanting Georgia to go in here. I think they probably will, but I've got a concern, and I want to chop wood on just how Auburn is the exact type of team that with Georgia's injuries on defense right now to give them a little bit of trouble. And I say that because Robbie Ashford stuck out to me earlier this week whenever Kirby Smart said that when Robbie Ashford was at Oregon, B-Mac, Brian McClendon, who was also there at the time, is now Georgia's wide receivers coach. That Ashford worked out with the skill guys, worked out with the receivers, and, I've seen him in action. I saw him play against San Jose State a little bit. Very fast kid. You need Smile Munden. You need depth at inside linebacker because you're going to have to chase that guy around a little bit. If Munden's unable to play or if he's not full speed, I think that's maybe a little bit of an issue. You combine the fact that they've got Hunter, they got Bigsby. Both of those guys are really good football players. And you would like to see Georgia at full strength defensively going into this game. Now, listen, I understand that they're playing Georgia in Athens. I understand that's a tough place to play for Auburn. Listen, I'm going to pick Georgia. Okay, I'm going to pick Georgia. I'm toying with whether or not to pick Georgia to cover. I got Georgia by 20 plus. I'll say that.
I don't know. I'm just going to flip a coin when we had to pick our spread this week.
But at the end of the day, watch out for that. Watch out for, that particular little matchup there with Ashford and Bigsby and Hunter against Georgia's front seven with Jalen Carter and Smile Munden out, because that's the one area where I think, this could be a little bit more of a fight for Georgia than they want it to be.
All right. We'll see, man. We'll see.
Yeah.
Palmer?
I am switching it up on y'all guys. You're
all over the place tonight, man. You're ruining people's families. You're dropping secret chats in the chat room. What's going on?
I'm talking Georgia basketball tonight for my chopping wood. We got October 5th, 2 days before Stegmania. Georgia basketball the start of the Mike White era this Friday. They'll have a little bit of fun there before the real business gets going a month later.
What is Stegmania all about, Palmer?
Megstania is what I like to call it.
What happens there?
I don't know. I think I've been twice.
Okay.
And
can I tell a quick story about Stegmania?
Yeah.
Sure.
So I forgot about Stegmania, the first one. Okay. And I came home and
that's the three of us, right? If you're watching on video, that's me, Jake, and Palmer. Yeah.
I come home it popped up on my Facebook memories today. I come home, I get the Low Country Boil set up out. Wes, you've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
I had a little Low Country Boil coming out one time when you came out to my old house before we moved.
Oysters. Yeah,
we did our little oyster roast there, and I had that bad boy out, and I got it ready, and I started drinking Michelob Ultras. I'm a big Michelob Ultra guy, Ultra Gold, organic, all that stuff. I love it. It's just easy drinking water beer. I get it, refreshing. I get about 2 or 3 in, and all of a sudden, one of the Georgia beat reporters tweets, here at Stegman Coliseum for Stegmania. Oh my God, are you kidding me? So luckily I wasn't, 9-10 beers deep, because I had to hop in the car and head that way. And, I had to, basically give my wife instructions on how to pull the, dump the pot out pull the colander out and dump it out for the family to eat. But God, man, I had to miss a Low Country Boil for Stegmania, and I don't think I'll ever forgive it.
They're not offering up Low Country Boil at Stegmania. I promise you that.
No. See, and this is how far we've come, Jake, because I was at that Stegmania, and I was your intern at the time, but you didn't trust me enough to go work it.
No, I don't think you were you posting your own stories at the time? I can't even remember.
I don't think so. Anyways, I also believe, and I could be wrong here, shout out to one of our loyal listeners, my mother. Jake, didn't you meet my mom and my brother at a Stegmania?
I believe
Yeah.
that's what it was.
Yeah. Anyway, so Stegmania is this Friday. Today, Georgia basketball had practice. Mike White opened things up for the media. Super excited to see that team. A lot of new faces in different places. Different identity to this basketball program right now. Philosophy behind it. Just excited to see where Mike White can take this team, take this program. Excited to see that. Obviously, it's football season. That's the big priority in Athens. Basketball plays a scrimmage and exhibition against Georgia College on October 31st. People are probably going to be dressed up like that, not at Stegman Coliseum, but around town. And they open the season November 7th. So long way to go there, but Georgia basketball on my mind today. Go check out a piece that I wrote on what we got to see today at practice.
Glenn Hartley says he's having a low country boil for Christmas. It's the family tradition.
Speaking of family, I feel like Glenn Hartley is becoming family.
I think Glenn Hartley's trying to get a paycheck from us.
Can we call him Uncle Glenn? Uncle Glenn, you cool with that? Hit us up in the comments.
Uncle Glenn. Uncle Glenn reminded me of a different family tradition that I spotted out and about around town, and it was one of those moments that you really just you can't really believe that you're seeing it unfold before your eyes. But I was in line picking up my pregnant wife a Starbucks order, and she has a very specific order that she has to get every time. I've tried to make it at home. It's the turkey sandwich or something, and I've guess failed miserably to do it. So I was in line to pick this thing up, and what do I see in front of me but Stetson Bennett's family just sitting there rolling into town early for the game. All three Stetson Bennett's. One.
You've gotten
two,
me with this twice now. Like I'm like, oh man, he saw his mom or his dad and the twins. I mean, that's cool. And then there we go. He does it with the dang mail trucks again.
Yeah. Well, Auburn fans were getting some jokes in. They're saying, well, they're all broken down. Like, yeah, it's not Stetson Bennett the fourth that's broken down though. So I appreciate Glenn reminding me of that. Guys, quick recruiting note. I did tease this earlier in the show, so I wanted to deliver. I caught up with Jake Roos. He told me about Georgia and Auburn on the recruiting front. We spoke at length. My video with Tom Hart is a full-fledged interview on our YouTube channel if you want to check that out. And this conversation with Jake Roos, we go way deeper into Georgia and Auburn, how it used to be a very heated recruiting battle between those two schools. Right now, it's not the case. Georgia's number 2 in the 2023 on-3 recruiting rankings. Auburn's number 32. All right, so that doesn't really cut it if you're an Auburn Tiger. But here's what Jake is looking forward to as far as this weekend goes with some high-profile visitors coming to visit between the hedges.
It's going to be a big one, Wes. I mean, they got a lot of guys on campus for this one, as you might expect. I mean, Georgia's biggest home game, maybe of the year. You could probably say Tennessee. It's definitely between the two, obviously. And I think that they want to bring in as many guys as they can. And this visit list is taking really nice shape for Georgia. An official visit from Damon Wilson on tap this weekend. I think that's definitely one to watch. Georgia loves that guy. 5-star pass rusher, and they really need some pass rush in this class. He's one of the best in the nation and really long. They have some of those guys in the 6'3", 6'4" range, but they need one of those, 6'6" guys that can really get out there and bend the edge a little bit. Damon Wilson certainly fits the bill. Hearing a lot about Ohio State there, so could be a tough pull, but Georgia very much in the mix along with Alabama. I think that those are kind of the three schools setting themselves apart. Going to be interesting to see how this visit shapes things moving forward because Damon Wilson is, like I said, a guy that they really want. And he spent a lot of time on campus in Athens over the summer, 4-day trip, unofficial visit. That's really unusual. You don't see guys come that long for the most part, but he made a great trip. And, to follow it up with an official visit seems like a strong indication of how he feels about Georgia.
Good
4 days,
God,
4
those
days
highlights.
Yeah, 4 days.
Those
in
highlights
Athens.
or something else. Hey, Jake mentioned it there that this could be Georgia's biggest home game, along with that Tennessee one.
I don't think there's any question.
Are we thinking Georgia's going to go without a night game at home? I mean, because this one's 3:30. Vanderbilt's been announced as 3:30.
It'll be dark by the time the game's over. So I don't know. You got to take what you can get.
Especially if Tennessee, when the time changes, that'll probably be a 3:30 game. The entire second
time
half.
Doesn't change this year, does it?
Huh?
I thought the time doesn't change this year. I thought
maybe not.
I don't know, man.
The days do get shorter though.
The days do get shorter.
Well, I mean, our company headquarters based in Nashville. All the stories we write are set to Central Time. I mean, I don't know what time it is half the time. I don't know what's going on.
I just got back from St. Louis.
Yeah. Jake's
bedtime
report,
for Jake.
Jake's report there sets me up perfectly to tease our $1 for a year premium membership. That is still going on. So don't let it break the bank. Check it out. $1 for more premium recruiting info from Jake, from Jeremy Johnson, from Chad Simmons. All those guys keep it so hot. And another perfect segue here, Tomahawk Dog. I know you're a happy dog right now. The Low Country Boyle family tradition for Christmas. Will you adopt me, Uncle Glenn? We've already established a nickname here for Glenn, and Glenn says, come on down. Go Braves. I know Jake was beside himself just celebrating last night, getting noise complaints from the new neighbors, just hooping and hollering after that big win.
Yeah, I got some painting to do. I got some champagne on the walls last night.
Yeah. The plastic tarp shaking up beer cans and champagne.
I ain't laughing.
Yeah. What'd you do? You just spray champagne all over your house?
No, I just I was just relieved, because losing 4-0 on Monday just immediately took me to, oh my God. I didn't talk as much junk as a lot of people did, but it just took me to the point that I was like, oh my God. You know what a disaster would be is getting swept by the Marlins and then watching the Mets sweep the Nationals. That would be
they were bringing it. They were trying.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I don't expect the Braves to repeat. I didn't going into the season. It's just the odds are non-existent. But to win the World Series and then also win the division again, it just shows this team was not a fluke. They still got some really good pieces, and they were even better in the regular season. So a relief, yes, and a lot to celebrate. All right, that's enough baseball talk. I'll let y'all tune into your other Braves shows for that. We won't bore you if you don't want to hear about Braves baseball. Jake's ready to go to bed, and Palmer's heading over to Stegmania. So appreciate you, fellas. Good stuff tonight. Head on over to DawgsHQ.com to keep the party going. We will catch y'all next time we get together right after this Georgia-Auburn game on Saturday night. Y'all have a great weekend. Talk to you soon.